Okay, we are live and you may begin whenever you're ready, Aaron.
All right, fantastic. Well, welcome everyone to this listening session. My name is Aaron Webb. I'm the director from the Lake Ann Oaks District. We have a few other folks on the call with us I'd like to introduce here at the outset. First, we have Larry Butler, our Reston Association's acting CEO. I see a few other directors have joined us. I see Director Dowling and Director Petrine and President Anton. I don't know that I might have missed somebody. And then also we have some additional Reston Association staff. Mike Leone, the Director of Communications, is helping, and Sean Barami, our media manager, is going to make everything work well, so we can focus on listening. So tonight's the second of 5 listening sessions we're going to have over the next few weeks. Again, this year our listening sessions are over Zoom, though we would love to be in person. And of course, as has been the case in the past, members are welcome to attend any of the sessions, not just the district that you live in. And they're all about listening and hearing feedback from the members. We want to hear your comments. So there's not going to be a lot of presentations or one-way information. We want to have conversations. Rather than just go open mic, though, I want to lay out a couple of things that I'm interested in hearing about, and lay out some topics and maybe trigger some thoughts. So some of the topics that we want to talk about, if possible tonight: managing Reston's open spaces, assisting the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee with their work plan for member input on all the different amenities we have, especially Shadowwood Pool. And then a couple of topics that I would love to talk about that are kind of specific to our district. First off, I'd love to hear feedback on bike lanes. And then I noticed the temporary road traffic light is going in, and I wondered if it's time for us to finally commit and choose a permanent name for that part of the road. So I'd love to talk to the community about that. But to help kind of get things going on open space, I'd like to turn a little bit of time over to our acting CEO to share how Reston Association is participating in managing our open space and conserving things and where we are now. So Larry, I'll turn it over to you for a few moments.
All right. Thank you, Aaron, and welcome everybody. I'm just going to spend a few minutes here talking to you about some of the response we've had. It's been an interesting half for not only the RA staff, but Restonian and the world, frankly. And one of the things that was good, but a little bit challenging, is we saw a massive increase in use of our common areas, pathways, lakes, etc. Reston Association owns about 20% of the land, not including the Dulles corridor in Reston, north and south of the toll road. And through that, we have our 55 miles of pathways, which were extremely well utilized. They were actually the most popular facility we have before the pandemic, and they just increased in popularity. And of course, with that, we had to step up our trash pickup and so forth, and make sure that anything, tree that fell across was removed very quickly, because with so many people, we heard about things very, very quickly. And so I like to think we have a very good response time to those things as well. But it was certainly tested over the past year and a half, and actually continues. So it's great to see people actually out and about, going to facilities, whether it's a picnic area or pavilion or something that they may never have even knew existed. So that's refreshing, and I think it also gives people an understanding of the breadth of what we do here at Reston Association. So some of the current challenges we have related to that is we are still having a difficult time finding staff. I will say that we were pretty successful in getting guards this year, and that's often a challenge. But finding maintenance staff when a lot of the big box stores are now, paying $15 an hour and so forth. It's become more of a challenge. And not only for that, but also even for some of the full-time positions. We felt the impacts of weather events. I think it was just a week before last, we had what was essentially a 25 to 35-year storm roll south Reston, lifted up one of our bridges and sent it about 20 yards downstream. It has now been fixed and put in place. But those types of events with high winds and rainfall are becoming more common. And so the response required for that, both from our cleanup of trash, debris, and often tree work by our arborists, has increased. Of course, we continue to monitor the water quality in our lakes from an ecological standpoint, not for swimming. And we've been proactive in our management of invasive aquatic plants and algae and the like. And two interesting projects that are underway related to our stream restoration, which is one of the biggest urban stream restoration projects undertaken in the country, is the U.S. Geological Survey is getting a long-term monitoring program in the Glade and Snakehead Branch watersheds to really advance the science and benefits of urban stream restoration. They're going to be looking at the chemical composition, the flow regime, all sorts of factors related to urban streams, as well as benthic invertebrates and things like that. So that is just getting started. And another one that's just getting started is the College of William and Mary, assisted by George Mason and Virginia Tech, is starting a research project on managing non-native invasive plants in mitigated wetlands and stream restoration areas. And I know that they were doing some recon today on both of those projects, looking at specific sites for the plots and things. So I guess in summary, it's been a challenging year and a half. I think we've come through it really well. And again, I'm happy to see so many people out using our facilities and enjoying the benefits of living in Reston. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Aaron. Unless there's questions, happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Larry. Let me go over a couple of rules of the road here for our time together, and then we'll go with questions. So if you could use the raise hand button on your Zoom console when you'd like to speak, then we can acknowledge you to make sure we all can take turns. And if you don't wish to speak, you can type it into the chat also. Unless chat gets away from us, because we much rather talk and look at each other eye to eye than just read. And so we're going to try and keep comments to 3 minutes to make sure everybody has time. It looks like we've got about 19 folks on today, and then a couple more of our directors have snuck in after I made the acknowledgement. And I don't know if you'd like me to embarrass you or not. I'm going to assume you feel the way I would, and not would be your preference. So I see a couple of hands, and I assume that you want to ask Larry questions. So Deborah, you're in the upper right corner of my screen. So let's let you go first.
Okay. I guess I'm looking for some clarification on what's going on with the pools. We heard about this recommendation to repurpose or close Golf Course Island Pool. It seems to me it was just last summer that they did a major resurfacing effort there. What is the status of the renovations that were supposed to take place at the Shadowwood Pool and the Tall Oaks Pool? What was budgeted? What was that for? What's the condition of those pools going forward? What's their expected lifetime and so on? We're getting all these conflicting reports. You're not closing the pools, but you're closing the pools. So we'd like to get a lot of specifics on what actually is going on.
That's a great question. Let me jump in here first a little bit, Larry, and then I'll let you chime in with detailed facts and figures if you'd like. This goes back to my plea earlier about the Parks and Recreation Committee. We're getting to the point where a lot of our amenities are long in the tooth. And so it's our responsibility to figure out what does the next 30 years look like amenity wise. And so lots of ideas have been floated and thought about. And I don't know that any of them have bubbled all the way up to a recommendation yet. They're just ideas. They're what ifs. So I remember we went on a little field trip over to the golf course island, and the way it was put to the directors that were on that field trip was, here's some what ifs. Look at this fantastic parcel of land and imagine all the different things that it could be. It could continue to be a fantastic pool where my kids went to swim team until they got too cool for that and begged to be let out of that. So every Saturday we were there until they were teenagers. But that's what we're looking for feedback on. No decisions have been made about this pool's closing and that one's staying open. But the thought process has started to open up about what does it mean for Reston to have world-class amenities? And it probably doesn't mean like for like replacements of 30-year-old pools, because we always want to be pushing forward. Now, it might mean more pools. It might mean slightly different pools. If the Reston Town Center North goes in with and that's going back and forth. I don't know if you've been to any of the DRB meetings about that, about how many residents that could be. If that goes in and we don't put a pool in there, there's a large portion of Restonians that are not within walking distance of Reston Pool. That doesn't seem very fair. Unfortunately, a lot of these things come out and in a panic sort of mode, because somebody will say, well, latch on to one of the what ifs and say, oh, they're closing the one by me. Whereas really, we all want to work together to optimize what our amenity mix is across the whole community.
But really, you have the executive director has made recommendations to close those 4 pools. You're moving forward with meetings on 2 of the pools, Shadowwood, where my granddaughter lives, and Tall Oaks, where I live, and so it's a little bit disingenuous. We've seen the specifically for the Tall Oaks pool, I feel like the developers gave us this wonderful resource. There's nothing wrong with having a small neighborhood pool, quiet. I think that's what Reston is all about, really. It's not about these grand recreational centers or whatever you call them. And, now the Reston Association, for maybe the 3rd time in my memory, is moving to take it away.
Go ahead, Larry.
So let me reemphasize what Aaron said. No decisions have been made. The prior CEO identified 4 pools that, because of low use, maybe should be looked at a little more closely before investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into major renovations. That's all it was. He didn't recommend closing them. And I can tell you the draft budget that was sent to the board on Friday includes funding to get the Tall Oaks pool done and to operate next year. The only 2 pools that are, well, one is for certain because it'll be under construction, is Lake Throw Pool and Shadowwood Pool. There's a major community effort unfolding really the last weekend of September. 2 on-site events, a virtual meeting on Sunday. There are door hangers going out. There's an online survey that's going to be going out. So the board and the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee are trying to get input from the whole community on that particular pool. It may end up exactly like it is, but before we invest, again, what it needs right now is over $200,000 of work to get it up. And
For what, Larry?
What, for Shadowwood?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
200,000. That's a lot of money. Wasn't it just something with the bathhouse or something?
If you haven't gone out and gotten projects estimated, there's decking that has to be replaced, or the county won't even let us open. So there's decking, there's bathhouse work, pump room work. Yes, it is.
And what about at Tall Oaks?
That is primarily decking work that has to be done there. And so we are going to go ahead and get that done. That may get done at the end of this year.
Mm-hmm. The shell of the pool looks great. I mean, we've been able to view it in its full glory now that it's empty.
So it will open next year.
Yeah.
Now, again, that, in the draft budget, there's cost to that, but I've factored those in, and the board will ultimately decide that, as they do with any of the pools. And then Lake Throw, of course, we're going to try to get a general contractor on. We're vetting the bids right now.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I just want to say I really appreciate the efforts that your staff made to open the pools during the pandemic.
Thank you. Yeah, it was
really well done.
Applause to them. I agree.
Well, thank you. I'll pass that along.
Yeah. Thank you, Deborah. And I would encourage you, track the Parks and Recreation Committee and go and join and participate and chime in and let them know these are the things that make Reston, right, to you, so that all that input gets factored in. That's really what we need, is lots of voices and lots of ideas about what we love about our community, so that we can make sure that it continues to be that. We don't just settle into a rut. Should we move on to another topic? I see more hands. Philip, I'll have you pronounce your last name just so I don't mess it up. You're next on my screen.
It's Philip Mazel.
Mazel.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask Larry is about 2 years ago, the Virginia Fishing Game did an unofficial survey of the 4 lakes in Reston.
Correct.
And they found a severe lack of sunfish in Lake Ann. He said it was the worst he's ever seen. And then he said Thoreau was the best he's ever seen. Wonder if there's any thought about finding a way of taking some of the sunfish from Audubon, maybe having a fish derby or something, and putting them in Lake Ann. Then you don't have to stock any fish, buy any fish.
That's an interesting notion. It would take a lot of fishermen to get enough sunfish to make a dent, I think.
Well, if you only had a kid that goes sunfish with a worm, you know how quick and easy it is to get a whole bunch of sunfish.
That's true.
Just if you would consider that, I know last year I raised it up and it was told we don't stock fish, but it was also brought up by, I forget the man who does the environmental group. He also raised the question about you have an ecological imbalance in the water when you don't have enough food fish like the sunfish and the crappies are.
Right. Well, and getting fish is not, they're not that expensive. The difficulty with stocking sunfish is you have to stock them at a size where they're not just like dropping crumbs into a goldfish bowl where they just get,
Well, he said they also found the biggest ones he's ever seen in Audubon. I mean, I think you have a good fish community that's willing to go have maybe a kids fishing derby. I mean, there's a couple of things you can do to get people involved and willing to do it at a very, very small cost.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk to Michael Geiger, our watershed manager. I know they have it was either just passed or just coming up. They actually have a fishing derby down at, I think at Lake Audubon.
All right, we'll save the sunfish. Thank you.
Thanks, Philip.
You're welcome.
That was great. Erin, you're next on my list.
Thank you. First of all, everybody, thank you for volunteering for Reston Association. I came in 20 years ago, and I know you're asking Deborah to join it. She's probably done more than all of us combined for Reston at this time. So she was one of the principal people for the Reston market. I was paddleboarding on Lake Thoreau the other day, and it looks gorgeous. Whoever's been monitoring the lakes and taking good care of them, it is by far just absolutely beautiful. We get in at Lake Thoreau pool and tool around, and the pools have been so overcrowded this summer that that's what I'm having to do is get on the lakes. And you're saying overcrowded, but the attendants don't show that. I can't get a lane to swim in. They're all reserved up, and I'm a distance swimmer. So there's no place for me to swim in Reston anymore. I have to go and rent a lane at Herndon Community Center to make sure I have a place to swim, just to give you an idea. I enjoyed you saying something about walkable Reston. That has been so far down the list. That's a word that's not used anymore. And from where Deborah and I lived, she's on the other side of North Shore. It's a little less than a mile to Tall Oaks. It's a mile and a half to Uplands Pool. And I would not trust children younger than 12 to walk there. And it's 2 miles to the North Shore Pool. The closest pool, if you close Tall Oaks, is Golf Course Island, and that's a full mile away, and they have to go under the tunnel or cross Wheelie. Now, the pool there at Golf Course Island, if you've ever been there during the day, it's probably one of the most diverse pools you will ever see. I was there one day. One of the kids was goofing around. He was having a hard time learning to swim. I think he had a Somalian background, because of his accent. Who knows how long he's been here in the state. And one of the swimmers that does their mile or 2 miles in the pool pulled him over and showed him a few tricks and helped him with his swim stroke a little bit. She wasn't giving a lesson. She just gave him a couple of tips, and they made that neighborhood connection. And that's what Reston's about, is that neighborhood connection, the ability for them to fall out the door and go to the pool, which is monitored by lifeguards. So they are safe. There's no problems there. There's no drugs there. It's a great place for a kid to grow up. So
Yeah,
I just wanted to mention that to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let me jump in here a little bit.
Sure.
Something that was mentioned at a previous meeting, and I can't remember which one it was I was in, is that a lot of times folks who live in that community are new to Reston, and a lot of times they're just renting and they're unaware of the
They're unaware
to go and get a pool pass and those sorts of things. And so that was one of the things that somebody brought up, that we need to advertise a little bit better and educate our members, because Reston's amazing in that it's not just property owners that are members of Reston Association, it's residents that are members of Reston Association. That was something unique that was put in place in the beginning, and I think it is rare across this world to find people like that. So I totally agree. We need to make sure that everybody knows how to come and use our facilities.
and know about it and reach them at their level. For this example, this particular young boy, someone else in the community made sure that he knew how to get to the pool, because his parents aren't on Reston Association Facebook page. They don't follow our Twitter or anything else. That's not what they do. You also mentioned attendance. If you close the pools 2 days a week, you don't record the child care that uses them. You close them, open them late and close them early. It's only been in the last 4 years that pools were closed before Labor Day. And I know it's really a lifeguard situation. Well, those numbers make these pools underserved or look underserved. Golf Course Island is a busy pool. Next summer in July, come over, see who's there. You're not going to get those kids to go to North Shore. They're not going to go to any of the destination pools because they don't have a parent driving them. So just remember that they need to be within walking distance. That's all I have today. And Philip, if you need help catching fish, I'll help you, but you'll need an oxygenator in the little buckets to transport them. I've done that a few times.
Thanks, Aaron.
Aaron, this is Mike. Erwin Flashman had his hand up from the very beginning. So if you could take him next. Yeah, he did.
Oh, I didn't see it. I saw Jill's up there really early. Let's do Jill next, and then we can do Erwin.
Yes, hi, this is Jill Lower. We are in Bentana Woods West. My husband, Jeff, and we moved here in January. And my question for all of you is about composting and what interest Reston Association might have on doing more composting. We moved from Vermont, and in Vermont, in the last, it was about a year and a half ago, there was a new law implemented where you have to do composting, household composting of like table scraps. And I mean, everybody in Vermont, almost everybody in Vermont was doing it anyway, but now it's like law. So I proposed this idea to the Bentana Woods West board, and they loved it. And we are actually piloting right now We have a composter down the street on Parkland Court, and several of us are using it actively. So just wanted to know if there's interest for this being wider in all of Reston and bringing it to other, clusters. So just sort of a question first, and I can certainly provide more details and information of what we are doing here at Bentana Woods West and what Vermont has been doing. So just a general question first. So, any interest in pursuing that?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Larry, have you heard any inquiries from other directions?
I've heard not a lot. And maybe Tim has, because, working with the EAC, I know, the main composting we do is our garden plots, we're natural, and a good fit because you've got all those plots there. Sometimes it's difficult to keep non-compostables out of there, but that is a challenge. Jill, I would recommend that maybe you provide the information of what your cluster is doing and how you're piloting that.
Sure.
To Doug Britt is the chair of our environmental advisory committee, and Tim Alling is the board liaison for that. And Tim's on this call here.
Okay.
You can find all the contact information on our website, but that might be a good thing to put in our Cluster Connect newsletter as well, which is a relatively recent thing that our governance department is putting out that is getting really good traction.
Tim, did you have
the only thing I would add is that Hunters Woods West, I believe, is way ahead of the curve. So congratulations on that. But please share it with Doug Britt, and I will do so as well. I'll make sure the Environmental Advisory Committee hears about this initiative.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, we're mostly doing, I think in the summertime, like corn on the cob. So you have all those peelings and the cobs, and it doesn't need to go in the trash. I mean, it easily composts. So we're doing that, and, things that can't go down, like a garbage disposal, banana peels, coffee grounds. It's so easy to just collect that. And then we have a compost bin, right in our cluster, and just go dump it in there, and it does it itself. I mean, there's really no effort on our part, and it's just great environmentally to reduce, what goes into the trash. So I'm happy to share with Tim. I'll send you the proposal that I proposed, to the Bentana Woods West board, that they happily adopted and purchased a compost bin, and it's working great. And if other clusters want to pursue it as well, I'd love to do that. Happy to share more about what Vermont has been doing. Very, very progressive approach to composting household table, scraps. So thank you for listening to that idea.
Thanks, Jill. All right, Erwin.
Erwin, you're on mute. There you go.
You unmute me.
You're unmuted.
Thank you. Larry mentioned something earlier at his opening statement, which was sort of preamble to what's to come. And that was that we had a rather severe storm, which lifted a bridge and carried it 20 feet downstream or upstream. I'm not sure exactly where, but it carried it away. And that raises the issue of the more frequent storms that we will be having, the more severe storms, and the fact that climate change is upon us. It is not coming, it is here, and it is going to get worse, not better. And so the board, maybe a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, approved the opening up of a position and hiring of an individual to fill a senior level position for the environment. And this person, as was proposed originally by Doug Britt and myself some years ago, would interface with all of the senior level people and oversee, in the sense of see that the environmental considerations were taken into account in the course of the kinds of things that are done by Reston Association across the board, so that we could anticipate these kinds of events, anticipate others, and work to become a more resilient community and offset some of these environmental impacts, as well as improve the environment of Reston. So my question to you is, has any action been taken on that, and what action is being proposed? I have a second question as well. In the last board meeting, there was approved, and Larry mentioned it also, which was the USGS monitoring of a couple of lakes. And it was part of the board meeting, last board meeting, in which a right-of-way was approved for Dominion Electric to supply electricity to those two monitoring stations. And my question to you is, was solar lighting with batteries or solar electricity with batteries considered for that project or those projects? And if not, why not? And why was Dominion selected over the use of solar energy?
So I'll answer him back to front. The report I read said solar was looked at, and because of the canopy and tree cover, it didn't work. And in fact, the monitoring stations are online. There was a link that Larry shared. It was really cool. You go in and you click and you can see data, and you can see over that last storm that came through, there was a 6-foot surge in depth on two little streams there back in the glade and down that road. And one of the monitoring stations, there's all sorts of little gaps where it doesn't have any data because the solar couldn't keep up. So that one was looked at, and in order to preserve the integrity of the data, that was the best solution on that one. Going to your other question. Sorry, go ahead, Larry. Do you want to?
I was just going to add one thing to that. The weather station that they put in between the two watersheds at Glade Pool is solar.
And that one's in the middle of a parking lot, and so
Correct.
it gets plenty of sunlight, and that works great. And these weather stations, they're sizable things. At least these ones from the USGS. The picture that I saw was anyway. To your first question, the recommendation from the CEO was that because the work of the senior environmental director was had been split up and was being carried by several members of Reston Association as they were developing their careers and their positions, and that was working quite well. The recommendation was, for budgetary reasons, to hold off and delay that hire until we could reevaluate how we were doing using staff and the people that we already have. As it is now, the reason for delaying that is, let's wait till we get our permanent CEO, no offense, Larry, and let that individual participate in the hiring for those senior level positions, with which she or he will be working very closely for a long time in the future. So that's kind of why that position is being delayed at this point.
However, the board didn't make that determination, as far as I am aware. The board made the determination that the person should be employed, and no one else except the board has the authority to change that. So it seems to me that you should be going forward with it, not delaying it any further. It could take you another half year or a full year to find a CEO, permanent. And so you're delaying this without any authority to do so. The board made the decision. It didn't say, oh, let's delay until. It said, let's do it now.
Go ahead, Tim.
The decision by the board was for the upcoming budget. It was not a decision to hire a senior environmental official immediately. So there actually has been no delay. We're still working out the details of that budget, and we're on schedule as far as the action of the board is concerned.
So there will not be a delay. You will do it as of the beginning of the new budget year. Is that correct?
Let me address that. So Erwin, in my draft budget, I don't have that position because the first budget is the CEO's recommendation of what he believes or she believes the association needs moving forward. So I'm sure I will have discussions with the board about that position. However, as Aaron said, I think as I will not be in this position for months and months and months, right? I think it's appropriate for my replacement to make that selection. This is, it's going to be a senior leadership position. And what I did put in the budget though, was to reinstate the long-term seasonal environmental staff. And I think we've added $25,000 to do replanting and reforestation throughout Reston so we can really beef that up. I think it's more important to have boots on the ground at this immediate juncture than for me to go out and hire a senior staff person who may or may not mesh with the new CEO. So that's my recommendation. I'm sure I'm going to have many discussions with the board, some of whom are on this call tonight about that. That's where we stand right at this second.
Okay. All right. John, I think you're the next one on the list with a hand up.
You're on mute.
Hi, thanks for doing this. Appreciate your doing this. Good to see you, Larry. Good to see you, Aaron. We don't see you, Aaron, as much as we'd like to over here at Lake Ann. We had a meeting just before this one, as a matter of fact, with Supervisor Walter Alcorn about the future of Lake Ann Plaza, and a major study of the infrastructure showing that they have about almost $40 million of infrastructure needs here at Lake Ann. And I would hope that RA would get involved in that at some point. Anyway, thank you for doing this. And I'm delighted to see Debbie Schrentz here. Debbie founded the Reston Farmers Market, which has been my pleasure to manage for many years. She also saved the Tall Oaks Pool from a proposal to eliminate it many years ago. I see Larry smiling. He knows about that one.
I think I still have the button.
Anyway,
so John,
I appreciate your guys doing this. And I also appreciate what you said there, Larry, at the end about the boots on the ground, getting some temporary staff. And if I understood that correctly, boots on the ground, environmental staff to do some plantings and that kind of thing. Some areas are looking pretty shabby, frankly. We got one right over here by the canal on Lake Ann. That's a real problem. And I think what you just said probably goes directly to dealing with that. And I appreciate that very much. At any rate, I wanted to ask you about the CEO process. Is that appropriate to ask an acting CEO that kind of question?
I think you can ask the board.
Okay.
Aaron is a board member. I think it's probably more.
Okay, well, Aaron, maybe it's better directed to Aaron. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Are you guys going to look at the first place you should look to get a replacement for the CEO, and that is Reston? I think this is a marvelous community, 63,000 people. We got all kinds of retired federal executives, including some people from the EPA, some people with some fantastic experience. I would hope you'd look here first. I mean, our recent experience with nationwide contracts and headhunters is not necessarily very good. And I got to believe it would be nice to have somebody come in who actually knows something about Reston and who knows something about Reston Association. That's not been the case with the current CEO, frankly. But I would hope that you'd look here. I guess that's all I have to say today. I do appreciate you doing this session. They are very helpful. And I hope Debbie Schrentz at some point will run for the board. She's done more for this community in the Lake Ann area than anybody I can think of. And she's a good one. Thanks for having her on your program. Take care.
So John, let me ask you, what did you mean when you said you were hoping Reston Association would get more involved in the infrastructure of Lake Ann?
It's a lot more than infrastructure involved. It's community organization. It's facilities that include the lake, for example, going forward, things that need to be managed sustainably. It's not just building infrastructure. And it's something that I think that RA has a part of the process. And to date, I've not seen you in any of those meetings. Kind of surprised me because it is a wide target meeting. It's not a narrow issue. It's very, very big and involves us going forward in relationship with the lake, the relationship with the community. It's something where I would expect to see the RA director involved, quite frankly.
I guess I'm not clear. What do you mean, like lake management and those sorts of things? Can you be more specific?
Well, as I just told you, it's almost $40 million worth of infrastructure, some of which is intimately related to the lake. For example, you want an example? I got one, Aaron. You've had a major problem with water infiltration in a block of homes here, 21 homes. Water was infiltrating into the subsoil, probably into the lake. Now, Larry knows more about this than I do, but at a rate of 300 to 900 gallons per hour for a period of 7 to 9 months. The county acknowledged today that they have not, in fact, done the thorough engineering study of that, including using equipment that can look underground. But that's an immediate effect on our lake. If you're not interested in it, I think you should be. Okay, there's more, but that's pretty big in my mind. That relationship of the lake to 20 units who may have their underground going somewhere. I don't know where all that water took it, but it didn't leave it there.
Sorry,
I just say come to the
comment
next
on
meeting.
that?
You can get involved.
I just I listened into that meeting before this.
Did you? Good.
Yeah, I was watching. I wanted to get home so I could get these both one right after the other. And I know that Karen and I have had a couple of conversations with Walter about this, and the complexity of the property ownership that's all broken up down there, and
it's very complex.
And I agree with you, John, that they haven't done any ground penetration studies or anything like that, and so it'll be interesting to see, because my understanding is that they are going to do some of that, but I don't know the time frame for that. But
can I ask you a question you may know the answer to now that I think of it? Is there any kind of protection of the lake between that line of units on Quayside? You know where I'm talking about there, where they had the infiltration of the water. Is it possible that water's been going into the lake, or what is the relationship there?
Well, it's entirely possible, because once it gets into the groundwater, essentially the lake establishes the groundwater level in that immediate vicinity. But I will tell you, the volume is absolutely inconsequential to the volume of the lake.
900 gallons an hour, so it wouldn't necessarily affect the lake temperature-wise or otherwise?
I mean, even the relax, discharge, I don't know how many gallons per minute or hour that is, but that's warm water. And that, we've never seen any direct negative impact from that, because that's really close to your house, in fact.
Well, this would have been warm to hot water as well, because it was that pipe that was broken.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you think about the volume, like the storm that we had a couple of weeks ago, you think about the volume of water that runs off the curb and gutters and so forth.
I was struck by the figure 900 gallons an hour, and that came from an engineer, not somebody who knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
If my house were over that, I'd be quite concerned, let's say.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't want my house leaking that. That's for sure.
Exactly. Okay. Well, anyway, thanks. That's the concern, and I appreciate it, Larry.
Sure, you're welcome.
Karen, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify one thing, because I was at the meeting tonight as well, and the $37 million price tag is strictly pertains to LARCA-owned property, not anything that RA or any of the other private owners own. So.
Thanks, Karen.
Can't hear you, John.
Good clarification. All right. I'm not seeing any more hands. Anybody interested in talking about bike lanes or proposing names for temporary road, or that I just know? I personally am a little concerned because my kids are of the age where they all try and learn how to drive. I've got one left, and he's already starting to troll Craigslist, looking for old cars that he can drive when the time comes. And I'll tell you what, teaching a kid how to drive and driving around North Shore, that is one of the scariest things on the face of the earth. Now, I wish when the county had restriped that, they had taken parking away from one side and put a proper bike lane on both sides of that road. Parking's always an issue, but that would, I think we would all be much safer. And personally, I'm ready to say it was an experiment. It wasn't quite right. Maybe we can tweak it on that one. Another issue I'd like to bring up is that in our study, the Walk and Bike Reston's 2020 study, there are recommendations to put protected bike lanes on Wheelie Avenue from Barron Cameron all the way down to Sunrise Valley, and to put protected bike lanes on Sunset Hills from the new metro station over by Chick-fil-A all the way to where the W&OD crosses. And so in my mind, that would be doing exactly what happened to South Lakes Drive, where Wheelie and Sunset Hills would be reduced to one lane of vehicular traffic each way. That greatly concerns me. I don't know if it concerns anybody else in our district or on this call. I just wanted to get a pulse. What are your thoughts on that one? Is everybody okay with that? I'm looking for hands. I'm seeing smiling faces. All right, maybe it's something to think about and see if you have nightmares of. Oh, Philip, go ahead. Let's see. I'll let you unmute there.
Philip,
The North Shore, the upper North Shore.
Sorry,
And that's
sorry.
with two lanes.
Start over. We just barely got you unmuted there.
Well, I remember the time when Wheelie Avenue used to back up from Sunset Hills all the way up to the upper North Shore with two lanes.
Yeah.
Because of the morning traffic and the left turn lane not being wide enough to turn on Sunset Hills. So if you make it one lane, you're gonna be backed up to maybe past Barron Cameron. I mean, we haven't seen the traffic, but whether we will or not, but I mean, that was a real issue, the fact that it occurred.
Yeah. Would you be more inclined to ride your bicycle if traffic were that bad?
The answer to your question is no, because I'm too old. I tried riding my bike during the pandemic and I tried to go up the little hill we had here. And my niece says, you will never do that again, please. So the answer to your question is me. I would have a tough time going down Wheelie Avenue now. I'm not as brave as some of these other bicycle riders are that are going to willing to challenge the people of the road.
It's it's a delicate balance, and sometimes I worry that it's tricky to find the right way. So
is the bike lanes going to be both way, or are you just going to have one lane? You go either way? Because now you already have one lane by the turn to, the turn to Upper North Shore, and I forget the name of the lower one by the Unitarian Temple there.
Avenue. Yeah.
So I mean,
that made it better or worse. Remember all those people? You're just headed up Wheelie Avenue, minding your own business, and then that guy stops to turn onto Fairway and just like backs traffic up all the way. I apologize. I was him. But I don't know that what they've done with the striping has fixed that. I tried to turn my blinker on at the bottom of the hill, so at least people had plenty of warning.
Now the fact that you have a left turn lane.
Yeah.
It's about how many cars actually realize that and go straight. But if you start putting in a bike lane, that makes it even worse. So I would not be in favor of it, even though I doubt very much that it's going to impact me.
Any voices for it? Let's balance this out a little bit. Who thinks we absolutely need? I'm just looking for discussion, right? I'm not trying to make any decisions here. Just hear what people are thinking. Is that a hand, Deborah, or just waving? Bob, go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say that as much as we at Reston Association would like to have a voice, the loudest voice and the one that controls the money are both VDOT and FCDOT. So Fairfax County has a bike plan that it instituted 6 or 7 years ago. And we're now coming up to the fall where they have an annual get together where they talk about the striping that they're going to do. And largely, you've seen the results of the changes, not only proposed, but implemented. And given the fact that they are in the midst of resurfacing the streets, you're going to see striping
changes
to include bike lanes unprotected very soon in more spots.
Yeah, I'm just worried that because we put a report together that recommends it, Fairfax County will take that. Oh, they're good. They won't even try and come talk to us. Jeff, I think I saw your hand briefly.
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's Jeff and no longer
yeah.
Jill.
Yeah, Jill's here with me. Hi, it's Jeff Lower. I do a lot of cycling. I ride every day, and I ride on North Shore, wheelie, and as much as we have great amenities in town for cycling, getting from the north side to the south side is poor.
Yes.
Getting down anywhere around Reston Station is poor and dangerous. So I would support coming up with some compromises to improve around Wheelie and around Sunset Hills, and even making it easier to get to the WNOD from this part of town. There's very little access. Old Reston Avenue and Wheelie are really the only great access points, and both of those have problems.
Yes.
So I understand the issues with traffic and potential, but it's really hard to get from one side of town to the other right now.
Right. Yeah. So and we can be creative. We can figure this out. I think. But you're right. And so I ended up selling my car when I got a job in Roslyn. And I used the metro, or at least I did until I got work from home. But my wife wouldn't let me ride my bike to the metro station because she wanted me to live. But if I were to take the safe route, right all the way down, and it would just add even more time. So I agree. It'd be great if we could find a way to do that. I was talking to some friends, and because I don't golf, and so I don't know much about golf courses. And I was thinking, hey, the golf course should like embrace the community more and help encourage us and host a 5K and stuff. And I realized that's not compatible with what golf courses like to do. But I would love to see. I mean, there are some almost paths.
There are
way down, and then there's a gate, and then you get to the gate, and there's no way to get to the WNOD.
And to pretend that the fairway and wheelie is acceptable now, I mean, I had to make a left turn out of the Unitarian Church on Sunday.
Oh my goodness!
It's not good for cars. It's not good for pedestrians, or it's not good for bikes. It's not a good solution for anyone right now.
Yeah, when I ride the bus home, I have to get off at that bus stop, and crossing there, that's terrible.
Yeah, so the status quo doesn't work.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the input. Any other thoughts on pedal power and what it means in our area? All right. I'd love to hear thoughts on temporary road. Is it near and dear to everyone's heart, and don't dare mess with the name of that little tiny bit of road? Or can my OCD, and people share my OCD that like a road should have the same name from beginning to end. It should be New Dominion all the way across, and then we can just get this last little bit, we'll be good to go. Where does everybody land on that sort of an idea? I mean, they have to rename the pavilion, and now it costs money for new signs.
You'd have to change the sign. Right,
yeah. No, we really couldn't do that, but we could put an application into the county or the state to have it done. Is that the realm of what Reston Association should be doing, or just don't bother? What do people think?
being new to town, I find it sort of charming.
Okay.
And that it's a remnant of earlier developments.
All right.
I don't know why you would want to lose that.
How about Wheelie? Should we rename it to something easier to spell? Being new to town, I just.
For GPS recorders to pronounce.
Help Siri out a little bit. How many people have been over to Dr. Wheelie's house? Seen it? Anybody? Just me? It's hidden back in the trees. You can find it. It's a rental right now, but what is it? I can't think of the name of the cluster. There's a cluster there, and there's a little piece of the cluster missing. Something Oak Square, Ivy Oak Square, and there's a parcel that didn't finish that development, and there's a little house on it, and that's Dr. Wheelie's house.
That's in behind the old distillery building, right?
Right. Yeah.
I haven't been there in years, but yeah.
There's a little pathway you can walk there when you're walking between the American Dream place and the thing there out to Old Reston Avenue, and you can look in there and see it's back hidden in the forest. It's kind of cool. All right, other topics. What's top of your mind? What can we do to make? Ooh, I was about to use a phrase that I caught myself. What can we do to continue Reston's greatness? Don't want to borrow phrases from ne'er-do-wells. What keeps you up at night? What do you worry about? Philip, again.
Well, one of the things that I remember seeing was a proposal from Hank Lynch to better utilize at least Lake Ann by getting a pontoon boat to rent out and whatnot. Whether that's something that other people who don't have direct access to the lake would want. I mean, I think the rowboats, paddle boats seem to be a big issue, a big hit. I keep seeing them all the time with these four paddlers. And whether that, they also talked about having paddle boards rental and paddleboard classes. So I think that would open it up to a bunch of other people. I'm not sure the Reston Association has renewed the contract with that vendor that would giving lessons and whatnot. There was one about 2 years ago before the pandemic, and then he got hit with the rain. But
right,
that was some of the things that were being proposed to give better access for people not on the lake to the lake.
Right. So you can schedule a Saturday evening out on a pontoon boat.
There was one actually. It looks like a history of Reston or something. There was a bunch of kayakers out there going around with a person. I think that was a paid for tour. But we're getting a lot of people renting boats. There's no rowboats there. They're all kayaks and four-poster paddle boards or paddle boats. But whether that's something that's going to be considered, he had quite an intricate proposal. It was a big upfront capital expense, but it seemed like it was going to pay for itself. Some of the other things like paddle boards and paddleboard instructions and rental may be something would have less investment and more immediate payoff.
More long-term payoff and be an amenity that people would like.
Yeah.
At the risk of putting you on the spot, Larry, how much of that got executed and how much of it ended up getting put on hold because of the pandemic?
So we do have a fleet of paddle boards, so we are renting those, and we actually hired who used to run the paddle board, under a contract. So he actually ran our operation this summer. We'll see if he wants to continue next summer. We built the float house down there, which I think most of you have seen, which is a really cool structure for the rental operation, much more professional than kind of a torn umbrella over the sweltering attendants down there on the little dock. So yeah, we've made those improvements. I have put on hold the purchase of a pontoon boat. I'm not convinced that would be the moneymaker from the original proposal, but I and Laura and some of the other staff may reevaluate that. For right now, I'm not going forward with that.
All right.
Is there a
well,
regular rental or instructions for paddle boards? I didn't even realize you bought paddle boards.
Mhm. Yep, you can go online and look for those. Yep. If you're interested, if you don't want a bike, you can try paddleboarding.
No, I can rent and borrow one from my neighbor if I'm that dumb.
There you go.
I have a rowboat. I can go around with a motor and see all the things I want to see. But no, I mean, that's something is that he brought up, which I agree with, that there isn't a lot of access. Lake Ann happens to have more access because of the plaza, but
right.
some of the other lakes only have limited access and no commercial access. So, you know, and that's one of the big features of Reston is the lakes.
Good point.
All right. Thank you.
Good, thanks. Well, we've had lots of great ideas and great feedback. I really appreciate the discussions. Anything else? There's several that we haven't heard from yet. I don't know if you just wanted to come and listen, but if you have any thoughts or ideas you want to share, raise your hand, or we could end this a little bit early and we can let Larry and Mike and Sean get home to their families.
Or at least get some dinner.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's I appreciate you going to all the different things, and that must be how you keep your figure so good. Rest Association meetings. All right, so last call for more comments. I will pull up my little script here and say thank you so much. The next member listening session is going to take place Monday, September the 20th at 6:30 p.m. It'll be hosted by President and Hunter Woods Dogwoods District Director Karen Anton. And everyone, of course, is welcome. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you have any other things you want to email me and talk to me about, bodweb with 2 B's at reston.org is the best way to reach me. And thanks again, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
All right. Good night, everybody.